I went into William Albrecht's channel and I was like, yeah, I suspect Mary, the brothers of Jesus are probably half brothers that were Joseph's kids. They seem to be older than Jesus in the way that they interact with him. I don't think Mary's a virgin. I don't think she was a perpetual virgin. I don't see why that would matter. Of course, I think Mary's dead because she died, and the resurrection hasn't happened yet. But that's just, I have no reason to think otherwise. I have no reason to make her special for the same reasons that other people do in the way that they do for the reasons they do. Not to say she isn't special. Of course she's special. I even don't have a problem with saying, and I understand the historical baggage, and people aren't going to understand this, apparently. But look, this is just the way my mind works. Jesus is God. So in a sense, God died. Did the divinity die? No, the divinity didn't die. But Jesus, who is one person, who is God, who is a human, died. So for me, God died in that sense. We don't know how that works, okay? But I don't have a problem with saying God died, because Jesus is God and Jesus died. Same thing with Mary. Mary gave birth to Jesus. Jesus is God incarnate. Mary is the mother of God. The baggage that people, add to that, I don't care. Okay? That's the problem with people misinterpreting the Bible, is they don't separate the baggage, bro. Catholics aren't any better than Protestants at this. Everybody's pathetic at this. They can't untangle what the text demands from what the text is applicable to in and of itself. Now, of course, systematic theology, the witness of those who came before us that were wise, hermeneutics, biblical continuity, greater context, immediate context, word usage in its historical context, all matters. Okay? But you can still ask of a text, is this teaching this doctrine? Does it demand this doctrine? Is it compatible with this doctrine? People can't separate those things. And it makes them end up being dishonest with the text, in my opinion. Some texts are ambiguous regarding certain doctrines. Certain verses are compatible with more than one theological understanding in and of themselves. People need to realize this. If they did realize it and they operated charitably under those conditions, things would be a lot better in in-house debates. So, I also told William Albrecht, I think the woman in Revelation 12 is Mary. And I was like, but it's also Israel, and it's also the church, because it's sweeping through time. First I said, look, I do think it's Mary, but see, he's so hyper-focused on that, and I was like, and they were arguing about, Mary stuff with some Protestants, and I was just like, I agree with the Protestants, obviously, but ultimately, but not for the same reasons, because I don't use bad arguments. I don't use arguments that aren't true from the text. Text doesn't prove that Mary had children after Jesus was born. It's ambiguous. It might be true. You can make a case for why it's probably right or not. I think the indications in the text, which are not clear, there's reason to think Joseph was older, that Joseph may be a widower. So Jesus' brothers may have been older brothers. I think Mary's dead. Dead people are awaiting the resurrection. I think Mary's the mother of God, but I think she's dead. I don't think she's ascended into heaven. I don't think she's bodily assumed into heaven. I think she's dead, because that's what happens to people when they get old. They die. And Mary's not without sin, okay? There's no reason to believe that. That's insane. Or it's not insane, it's not in the text, okay? And I think the reason people push for that are based on Augustinian ideas about Romans, okay? So I told him, he said I was delusional, and I thought that was funny, because I'm like, bro, it is Mary. It's clearly talking about Mary here. You can look, it's been on the screen the whole time. Okay? It's talking about the fall of Satan. the plan of salvation through history leading to the pinnacle of history, which is Jesus being born amongst his people, right? So we have the woman is God's people represented by his wife, his bride, and the fall of Satan to the victory of Jesus. And clearly, this is a astronomical sort of imagery here. The woman represented in the symbolism is Mary, giving birth to Jesus, the virgin woman, represented by Virgo, the virgin astronomical sign. That was over Judea. See Michael Heiser's work. Of course this is Mary. But it's not talking about her ascension into heaven. That's the symbolism of the sky that was prophetic about Jesus' birth, The virgin gives birth. It's not about her being in heaven. That's so absurd. Unless you mean by her, you mean the virgin who gives birth to Jesus was a star sign in the sky that foretold Jesus' birth. But that's happened before Jesus was born as a sign of his birth. And the Son is assumed into heaven after his death and resurrection. So who is the woman after that goes into the wilderness? That's the church being persecuted by, I don't know, the woman riding the beast. But not in this symbolism here. It's Satan. Because, well, we won't get into that. But it is the harlot woman who is apostate church that rides the beast, which is the fourth beast, which is Rome, which had papal authority when the church, merged with the civil power and had that power for exactly 1260 years, the same incremental interpretation of the time periods as, the one that proves Jesus is the Messiah in Daniel's 70 weeks, but we can just pretend that isn't true and that every Protestant didn't show that and believe that. But we'll just pretend like they were all wrong. And the fact that, the Roman Church had civil power for exactly 1260 years historically, following the same flow out of Daniel, that's just a coinky dink. But anyway, so the woman is God's people. That's who the woman is. And God's people, Israel, out of there, the seed of the woman comes. And he miraculously is born from a woman named Mary, who is clearly in view. Mary is God's people. Israel was God's people, or is God's people. And Israel / the church, the new covenant people of God that received Jesus, are the woman now. You could call it Israel and the church, but I know dispensationalism has just totally made that a mess. The point is, they're God's covenant people. And the new covenant is in Christ, who's ascended into heaven. So who is the woman? It's the bride of Christ. It's God's people. It's Israel. It's Mary. It's the church. Which one is it? Which one? Which one of them? Is it Mary? Is it the church? Is it Jesus? Is it God's people? Is it? Yes, it is. All of them.